Hello, and welcome to the second episode of The Bigger Boat with me, Luke, and my friend here,
Joey.
We still haven't got this...
We thought we put a dramatic pause in there.
Yeah, we could do. We still haven't got this professional yet. Never mind. No matter how much we talked about...
I did do that on purpose.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, appreciate that. Made me look like a fool. Anyway, so welcome to the second episode of The Bigger Boat, the podcast, the film podcast where we go through Steven Spielberg's back catalogue and watch his movies one by one and have a little bit of a film chat about it.
Yes, I hope you're excited this week.
Yes, because this is... So not many people have heard of his first film, The Sugarland Express, but his second film is probably one of the most famous movies of all time.
Yeah, it helps, doesn't it? When you're trying to build an audience for a podcast, that the second one you do is the biggest movie ever.
Yes.
At the time.
That's why we didn't choose some weird auteur to talk through.
Yeah.
Tarkovsky.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're going to be talking about Jaws today, as you may have seen in the podcast title, which I'm quite excited about because you reprimanded me last week because I had never seen Jaws, and you couldn't quite believe that.
That's true. That's how we ended it, was my shock.
And I've mentioned this to some other people, and they're in exactly the same position. They can't believe that I've never seen Jaws.
Yeah, I don't know how you can live having got to, I'm going to say your age now, 32, without having seen it, because it's on TV, I would say, once or twice a year.
Yeah, I don't really watch films on TV. So it's more either Netflix or other streaming services available. Please sponsor us.
And it's on Netflix.
Yeah, all right, okay.
As well, which
fine.
You do have.
Yes, okay. Shut up. Yeah, I don't know how it's bypassed me, but it's just one of those things that has. Never mind. I didn't really realise until researching a bit for this episode how much significance it has, how much influence it had.
I mean, for me, I would think it also really put the spotlight on things like movie soundtracks. You'll hear us talk quite a lot about John Williams because he's done every famous score to every famous film. But I mean, the first one is Jaws. I mean, even if you haven't seen the movie, but obviously, you know the dun dun.
Yeah, of course.
Dun,
yeah.
Dun. I mean, it's such a simple, stripped down piece of music, but incredibly effective, and that's why it's lasted.
Yes, true. And even though I haven't seen it, we still came up with the name of our podcast, The Bigger Boat, based on this movie.
Yeah, based on a line from
this movie that I knew about beforehand without having seen it. So I feel like I have seen the movie, but I've never actually seen the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that line was actually ad-libbed. That wasn't in the script.
I've heard that.
You've heard that, yeah. Anyway, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, you had a good week.
Yeah, I did have a good week. I went to see my old university friend, that sort of thing. I did watch a movie.
Yeah. Tell me, what was the last movie you watched?
It was last night. I watched Whiplash for the first time.
Have you not seen that before?
Luke has been out for about a year.
I can't believe you haven't seen Whiplash. It's so important. It's great, isn't it? I love Whiplash.
It is very good, yeah.
Yeah.
There are times where I would say it almost borders on over-the-top intense.
It's so stressful.
Yeah, I was worn out by the end.
Yeah. For something that I have no knowledge of, jazz drumming.
I know, but weirdly, did you find yourself being like, oh yeah, that is slightly out of time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I understand his point, yeah. Exactly. That's not quite on tempo, yeah.
Yeah, I think he is. What's the line? Are you rolling or you're dragging? Or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's dragging. He's definitely dragging.
He's definitely dragging, yeah.
Yeah.
My friend's going, what is he?
Yeah.
Definitely dragging. He's dragging. Yes, I was right. Right. So, how are you doing, Luke?
Yeah, I'm all right. Not too bad. I've had quite a nice week. Apart from the fact, we found out it's not coming home after all. After all that build up, it's not coming home.
Yeah.
Which was pretty tense, actually.
Yes. Right. Wow. Well, back on topic. Luke, what was the last film you watched?
So, the last film that I watched it a few days ago, The Shape of Water.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it yet?
No.
So this was the, for those of you who don't know, this is the one that won the Best Picture Oscar this year, Guillermo del Toro's latest film. Yeah.
Of Pan's Labyrinth fame.
Yes, Pan's Labyrinth, which is probably my favourite movie of all time.
Yeah, it's way up there.
Yeah. So and yes, so I really like it. I really like his films, and it's a very interesting film. Actually, it's quite a conventional film in its structure, in the fact that it's sort of it's a girl meets boy movie, and a romance sort of ensues from there, and there's adversity, and it follows those, and it's very, very believable, which is remarkable because the boy in this film is a fish.
Right. Yeah.
So it's amazing how they make it seem so conventional and romantic and believable when you just look at it from a distance. It's so inherently ridiculous.
Yes, based on the trailer, you wouldn't think that was a convincing relationship.
But it's really well done. It's funny. It's quite horrible in times. Michael Shannon plays a just detestable person extremely effectively.
Great.
Really...
You can't beat a good villain, can you?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And really good performance from Sally Hawkins, who's the main character. Mm-hmm. And Doug Jones is the fish man.
Of course he is.
Yes, because he's the guy who's always in prosthetics for all of Del Toro's
I don't know
movies.
if he's ever had his face actually on camera. It's always been behind makeup.
It's always behind ridiculous makeup.
Yeah.
Did you see the latest Star Trek Discovery on Netflix?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, he plays the first officer in that, who is again a sort of fish creature.
Oh right, yeah.
Just he's really nailed that market down.
Yeah. Apparently, the villain, the great villain in Pan's Labyrinth, the captain.
Oh yes,
the
Spanish. Yeah.
Apparently, in Spain, he is sort of like a light comedy actor.
Really?
Yes, he is not a Mr. Intense guy. He
is terrifying in that.
He's sort of a easygoing, laugh a minute kind of guy. Apparently.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's like the Rob Brydon.
Yes,
of
he is.
Spain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit like Eric Bana. Do you know he was basically the Australian equivalent of someone like Harry Enfield.
Yeah,
he used to do impressions of people like Tom Cruise, but now he's like at the level where he's in movies with Tom Cruise. Almost. I don't know.
I knew he was a comic. I didn't know he was an
impressionist.
Impressionist.
Yeah,
was he? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
yeah,
excellent.
So there you go.
But yeah, you must see Shape of Water. I really liked it. It's very good. Yeah.
All right, I will check it out. It's definitely on the list.
So also during this week, we've had a listen, haven't we, to the first episode of the podcast, just to see
what we're putting you through.
Well, yeah, exactly. To see if we should just give up now. Anyway, I tested the podcast. Joey edited it, and then I played it to my wife, and she liked it. She said, it was quite good. She actually said, I hope this podcast goes quite well, as it might lead me to meet more attractive men, which was nice to hear.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. So please like and subscribe to make my wife happy. So, I think with our last episode, we talked a little bit about the plot of Sugarland Express and a bit of stuff before it. But because I think it's so famous, I don't think we need to go through a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. It's called Jaws. It's about a dentist,
Oh, dad jokes, yes. But I have made a little trivia quiz for you because I like trivia. So, are you? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a few questions.
All right.
To see how many you get. Some of them are a bit niche, but
a bit niche.
A bit niche. Ooh, a bit niche.
Make me nervous.
Right. Okay. So, first of all, easy one. What was the name of the mechanical shark or sharks that were used in Jaws? What do they affectionately call it?
Bruce.
Correct.
After, or is that one of your questions?
Well, that's
okay.
The second part of the question.
Okay.
Is who is it named after?
Steven Spielberg's lawyer.
It was, yeah, after his lawyer. I didn't know that. That's quite amusing. Okay. Number 2. What film won the Oscar in 1975 instead of Jaws?
1975.
Yeah.
I think because that's the same year as one of my absolute favourite films, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Correct.
Yes!
I knew you'd get that. This has a few parts to it, this next question. How many sequels has Jaws had, and what are their full titles?
Now, I believe there's 4. The first one's just called Jaws. The second one's called Jaws 2. Jaws 3, I think, is just called Jaws 3. And Jaws 4 is called The Revenge.
So, yeah, pretty much. It's Jaws 3D.
Oh, Jaws 3D. Jaws 3D, okay.
But, you got most of that right. So
right. There is a quote, a brilliant quote by Michael Caine, who is in
Jaws the Revenge.
Jaws the Revenge, which goes something along the lines of, I haven't seen it. Apparently it's terrible. But I've seen My House in Kent, and it's very nice.
What's he talking about?
How terrible Jaws 4 is.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
But in a Michael Caine accent.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try one. Okay, so what was the name of the film showing in the 2015 future sequence of Back to the Future 2?
Oh, this is niche. It's something like...
It is a Jaws film.
Yeah, it is. It is. Is it Jaws 15?
It's Jaws 19.
Jaws 19!
So close.
Because then there's that line, isn't there? The shark still looks fake.
Yeah.
As the CG thing comes over him. Jaws 19.
Okay, and the last question. So you got three right. Spielberg wasn't the original director of the film. One of the initial picks for the director was a guy called Dick Richards. And he was let go, or he talked his way out of the production meeting during a meeting with the producers and the writer. Why was he let go?
I know this. It's because someone in the meeting he had read the book or something and decided in his head, oh, it's basically a remake of Moby Dick. So he kept calling the shark the whale.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it frustrated the producers so much that they fired him.
Yeah. Anyway, so in doing some of my research for this, I watched a really good documentary. It's called The Shark Is Still Working. And I recommend you watch that if you're interested in some of the stuff that we have to talk about. But now's probably the best time that we go watch the movie.
Yes.
What do you think?
I'm excited.
Good stuff.
See you on the other side, if we're still alive. All right, so we're back. Having watched Jaws.
Yes.
Luke's first time.
It was, yeah.
Was it as exciting as other first times of other episodes in your life, Luke?
I mean, it was less tense. No, it really surprised me how tense it was. Oh, we're talking about Jaws here.
Yes.
I really liked it, but it was incredibly suspenseful. It felt like it was two different movies.
Yes.
To me.
You mean the bit with him on the island with all the people, and then it's almost like a completely separate. Yeah, the hunt on the boat with the three of them. Yeah,
absolutely. It's two separate things, and I think I much prefer the latter half, and I think the change is switched when they introduced Richard Dreyfuss's character.
Yes.
And I think he's really key in it because it adds a whole different energy, and a different vibe, and because the whole thing's really about the relationship, isn't it, between these three men.
Yeah.
And once he gets introduced and starts having the antagonism with Quint and the sort of friendship with Brody, that really makes it more interesting, I think.
Yeah. It's really, they're really, as archetypes, they're really good, aren't they? Because, you've got Dreyfuss, who's a sort of like young, intellectual, inexperienced to some extent, know-it-all. Quint is the much older, wiser guy.
Who had no idea what was saying most of the time.
I think that doesn't matter too much. He's meant to be a drunk, isn't he? So, and I think Robert Shaw was a bit of a drinker in real life. So
that's fine.
He was method acting there.
Yeah.
And then of course you got the main character who is the moral compass of almost like the two of them. He's not really grappling for how macho he is.
Yeah.
In fact, he's actually quite content with his sort of stance on life, which is that he's fine staying away from the water.
Yeah.
Until he's backed into a corner where, he feels morally responsible, particularly when the mother loses her child and she slaps him in the face. It really hits home. Like, that could honestly have been my son.
Yes, yeah.
That he's suddenly is like, I need to actually,
do something.
Get a grip and go with them on the boat.
Yeah.
To see from my own eyes that the threat is gone.
Because it's really subtle in the way it implies that he's also had quite a nasty backstory as well. In the fact that he's clearly a cop from New York, they've had to move out here where it's quiet, and when on the boat on that night scene when Quint and Hooper are comparing scars, he sort of looks down as if he's got some awful scar, but he doesn't want to talk about it.
I've never noticed that before, I have to say.
And it just adds something without any dialogue at all.
Yeah.
Just adds, something to the character.
A little bit of added mystery. Yeah, I honestly never noticed it before, but you're totally right. It does add extra depth to it.
Yeah.
And I'd also never really noticed that joke, which is really, really good. Yeah. Where he's talking about his fear of the water, and his wife says, "Oh, there is a clinical name for that," and he just goes, "Drowning."
Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah. Because that's when Dreyfus comes in, and then the humour starts to
Yeah.
It starts to become quite funny
because it makes Roy Schneider extra funny as well. The things he does with the wine, he tops himself up with almost a pint of wine and gives his wife and Hooper a tiny bit.
I just thought it's quite a remark. So I did a bit of reading about this beforehand, and it's quite a remarkable movie for some. I'm not sure this was the movie Spielberg intended to make.
Yes, because so much stuff got wrong.
Exactly, because it all went wrong, and he had to essentially make a lot of stuff up on the spot. One of the actors in there was also the screenwriter Carl Gottlieb, and he was the guy who sort of added scenes, and they'd often brainstorm scenes on the morning of or the night before the next day, just because their initial plan, I think their initial plan was to use real sharks, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you can see a few of those scenes in the shark cage scene where they actually use real sharks, and there's a real shark.
They basically had enough problems just with the production. I mean, almost like the shark aside, Spielberg said, "I don't want to shoot in tanks."
Yeah.
You can tell that water, I think it's something to do with the colour of it, like the sort of dark green colour. You can tell it's cold.
Yeah.
It actually seems like sort of British weather that they seem to have.
Sure.
Even though obviously it's an American island.
Yeah.
Well, it's not actually an island in real life. It's
no. But when it's when they get out to sea, isn't it? When they get out in that isolation,
it feels... You can tell that that's not a tank in a studio somehow.
And even all the shots, you can see there's wobbling. There's it feels it is very impressive. I think, but for something that he's produced this. For something that went so horribly wrong during the set, it's quite impressive, isn't it?
It is. It's. I think that's kind of what filmmaking can be. Is sort of like the production is not a reflective of the final product. So loads of stuff can go wrong, but if you're wise enough to know how to put a sequence of images together,
yes,
you can build suspense.
Yeah,
and that's basically its success is the fact that you don't see the shark. As much, it adds to the mystery.
You really don't see. So I timed it. You don't see the shark till after an hour of the film starting.
Yeah,
is your first glimpse, just a glimpse of the shark at that point. Yeah.
So that is a long time,
and
for a 2-hour movie.
Exactly for the main character to not appear till then.
Yeah,
and I think he had planned it to appear much more often, but because the mechanical shark that they were using was so difficult and kept on malfunctioning the entire time.
So that's how I think things like the barrels came into play.
Yeah, or the pier when they had to use it. So he was very clever at using surrogates. In the first attacks, he just uses underwater shots, which go in on the victims, and the music obviously has a lot to do with that as well. Yeah.
I remember saying either in the introduction or the first episode that the secret to Jaws is basically it's Hitchcockian suspense done really well. Mm-hmm. So I was going to try and explain to any potential sort of filmmakers or someone who wants to try and make a suspenseful film exactly what I mean by Hitchcockian suspense. So Alfred Hitchcock says there's a difference between mystery and suspense. So mystery is basically telling an audience what they don't know. Suspense comes from telling the audience everything they need to know in order to draw that inevitable consequence out.
I've got an example of this, actually.
So obviously, we're also playing with the mystery of the fact we don't see the shark under the water.
Yeah.
But then we also know of its destruction. We know, in a way, it makes a bigger point of the damage it can do.
Yes.
By not seeing the rubbery mechanical thing, which is the shark. But I'm talking about it as a character, obviously.
But I might be misquoting Hitchcock, but I think this I think encapsulates what you're saying. So Hitchcock said, a bomb is under the table and it explodes. That is surprise. The bomb is under the table, but it doesn't explode. That is suspense.
When I say, you need to tell the audience everything, it's only once the audience knows there's a bomb under the table. that suspense can be created, because then you can talk about absolutely anything you want. In fact, the more boring, the better.
Yes.
Because they're like, the audience is there going, when are they going to realise? When are they going to realise? When are they going to realise? And then Hitchcock also says you should never let the bomb go off. You should say, oh, what's this? And pop it, throw it out the window, and then it explodes. And you've kept your main characters alive.
It's like his film Rope, where there's a body in the room the entire time.
Exactly.
And there's a dinner party, and you know there's a body there, and no one else does.
Yes. And the suspense comes from when is the main character, James Stewart, going to realise this? Because he's sort of hinted and suspected, I bet you've got a body in there.
Yeah.
Right, and then the other thing I was going to say, because there's just such a good example of really good directing in Jaws. So the other thing that Alfred Hitchcock talks about is shooting or directing with a character's point of view. So you think, okay, what does that mean? Broadly speaking, it basically means you need more shots of that main character and then what they're looking at. And then that builds empathy. Okay. So I'm sure you might be able to guess the scene I was going to pick as an example. It's when he's sat on the beach and we've already had the first attack and stuff and people go out into the water. Yeah. And you literally have the shot of Chief Brody sat there on his sort of deck chair. You see his face. Yeah. You then cut to, it's the old man with his hat on. You cut back to Brody. He has a sigh of relief because for a minute there he thought it was the shark. And you have a whole bunch of these things. Yeah. There's a girl scream. Oh, it turns out actually she was on her boyfriend's shoulders or whatever. And so you're building sympathy for him because as well as ramping the tension up in general. This is exactly what Alfred Hitchcock does in Rear Window. So you have James Stewart, who is immobile because he's broken his leg, and then he's there and he's witnessing something awful happening to his neighbours. You cut back to his neighbours and you cut back to his face. Yeah. And then Alfred Hitchcock shows this in a really good clip, actually, that you can watch on YouTube. The key to really good directing and character empathy is... So, it's actually a shot of Alfred Hitchcock's own face. So, you have a shot of an old man. Yeah. He looks... And then you cut to a completely different location. Yeah. And it's what you're looking at is a mother who opens her arms and a toddler runs towards her and she hugs him. Mm-hmm. And then you cut back to the old man and he smiles. Yeah. Now you can tell that the old man is empathetic and he can feel the joy himself of like a mother's embrace. Yeah. Using the same two pieces of film... Either end, so the old man, he looks. Yeah. You replace the middle shot with a girl in a bikini. Yeah. You cut back to the old man, and he smiles. Yeah. And now you've just turned a caring old man into a sort of pervert. Yeah. And it's all through a sequence of images for an emotional effect, and that's what I'm talking about when I say Hitchcockian suspense. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, and he adopts that so well. We were talking a little bit about when they're trying to use real sharks. The producers thought it was a good idea. Have you heard the story about the actual what happened when they were trying to film with the real sharks?
And it got caught in the ropes.
Well, so what happened was they hired these two Australian documentarians who had filmed sharks before, and those are the ones who got the footage that they use in the shark cage scene. What they were going to do is, because when Richard Dreyfuss gets lowered down to the shark cage, they wanted to make the sharks look a bit more threatening and a bit bigger, because obviously this is a giant great white. So they used a stuntman who was a little person, who was only about 4 foot tall or something like that, to make the shark seem a lot bigger. But then the shark just attacked the shark cage. So that scene when they see it destroy a real shark destroying the shark cage, that genuinely happened. And the stuntman was so scared that he just did not get in there, just ran and hid in the toilet for the entire time. I didn't know that bit, I just like and they were going to do Richard Dreyfuss's like close-up scenes in a tank in a bit closer. Yeah. But obviously the producers said, okay, this is not going to work at all. And then they ended up going down for trying to build some mechanical sharks, which had problems of their own as well. Do you want to say anything about some of the visual effects problems they had with the mechanical sharks?
Well, they're quite famous themselves, almost like the production problems that they had. They were massively over schedule. When you go over schedule, you go over budget.
It went from 2 months to 7 months, didn't it? The whole shoot.
Yeah.
Which, so they were meant to film in summer, but
Yeah.
they ended up doing a lot of the stuff in winter in the sea.
Yeah. So I think the reason why they picked the location, as well as it sort of being cold and an uncomfortable place to, not basically they're not doing it just to make the actors really uncomfortable. It's to sort of like just give us the sense that it's a bit cold and a bit miserable anyway, and all of that kind of stuff. So basically, quite a lot of the time, I know they had 3 sharks. They basically had, I'm talking about like the rubbery sharks. So there was one which like was complete from, let's say, like on the left side. The other one was complete on the right side, and there was one which was sort of completely covered and stuff, which was on sort of a gimbal.
Yeah.
On a track because
wait, what's a gimbal?
Like a little crane arm.
Okay.
Like a little crane arm.
Like a hydraulic arm.
A hydraulic arm. Yeah.
Okay.
They can kind of flip up and down and all this kind of thing. I forgot that we're sort of like on audio, and I'm doing this with my hand. You know, and so, you know, a lot of the times they're in quite shallow water. I know they picked that location because it could look like the open ocean.
Sure.
But actually, most of the time you could kind of stand up.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so you'd have the track that this gimbal was on, not that far from the floor.
Yeah.
You'd actually operate it.
Mm-hmm.
But then saying that, I mean, it messed with the mechanics so much and things, and often the thing just sank.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter how much water you're actually in. The thing just sinks and refuses to do what you want. It causes production problems. So.
Yeah. Because apparently it did sink on one of the days when the producers came to visit. So apparently the producers were coming to set and they were watching the shark. And apparently the shark was just not moving right at all. Mm. And then it sort of just exploded in a bubble and slowly sank towards the bottom of the ocean. And the producer turns to Spielberg and says, "So that closes down stuff for about a night, right?" And it apparently was out for 3 or 4 weeks at that point.
Oh my word!
Do you think Spielberg was a bit naive? Remember, he's only 26 at this point.
Yes, he said. I've heard him say in interviews and things, like, when I think of Jaws, I think of like stupidity and bravery, sort of all combined. But I do think you need to be a bit young and a bit adventurous, if you like, to sort of like be like, yes, we're going to try and shoot this out on the water.
Because no film had been shot out actually at sea, had it? Everything was done in studios at that point.
I don't think so. I mean, there may have been, but certainly not as...
Nothing on this scale.
Nothing on this scale. No way. And I mean, gosh, what a risk. Because imagine at the end of your filming day, you go and screen all of the shots that you've done. Yeah. Usually the following day, because they have to go to the lab to get processed. But anyway, you sit there and you watch. And of course, you're watching an unedited version. So you're watching the shots where, you know, you're watching this rubbery shark go, and, you know, like... The fin will be going, but then you'll also see all the mechanics underneath and all this kind of thing, and you just be thinking, "Oh my, how is this ever going to look real?"
Yeah, but I didn't think it looked. I thought it still looked quite good.
Yeah, it does look quite good.
It's still held up, especially so. I think once the shark starts attacking people and getting on the boat, and right at the end, you can see a little bit more. The mechanics behind it, can't you? Yeah. But it's early stages when it's just when it's just swimming past. Yeah. It still looks quite convincing.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. There are, as you say, there are times, especially in the latter part of it, where you can almost see, ironically, its jaw. Yeah. It looks a bit as if it's made of rubber and it's been overstretched and it's starting to get cracks on the sides and that kind of thing. Yeah. But the point is that, you know, I think it used to be a sort of unwritten rule in Hollywood that, you know, if your effects was bad, just do it quickly and make it a bit blurry and that kind of thing, and have it in the editing, and that's exactly what they've done. But that said, and I'm sorry to be such a sort of 80s child about this, the fact that regardless of whether it looks real or doesn't real, it definitely still has a presence.
It still scared me.
It's still in the scene, isn't it? Like, which you just don't get with CGI. I'm sorry to be that guy.
No.
CGI is ruining movies, but it's like it's definitely there, acting with them.
Yeah, you're gonna love Ready Player One then. No, I completely, and it still works. So I think you've even got some video footage of me jumping.
I have. That's going to be on our Twitter page. In fact, you guys can make it a GIF, and you can send it to your loved ones.
So it still made me jump. It still works, I think.
Yeah, that was the bit with the his name Ben Gardner's boat.
That was the head. So the head made me jump, but Julia did a little bit of a eep.
She did, yes.
When the shark jumped on the boat.
Julia's Luke's wife. And do you know that was added more or less sort of last minute? They had edited a lot of the film.
Yeah.
And they previewed it to audiences, and then Spielberg is like, I can get another scream out of this. I know I can.
Yeah.
And so his editor, Werner Fields, sort of put milk and stuff in her swimming pool.
Yeah.
And just got that tiny the bit of hole.
Yeah.
With some sort of balsa wood, and then the rubbery head, and poked it out, and that was shot in her pool.
Really?
Yeah.
Just
and then they just put it in.
And that was the biggest scare.
It was the biggest scare.
For me, it's the biggest scare, and it's just on his pool.
Yeah.
Lovely, excellent. So, in spite of all the production going completely wrong, I mean, the actors must have been miserable all the time. They gave it had the nickname Flaws throughout the entire thing, and I don't think any of them thought it would be a success at all, just because it had gone so over budget, so over long.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're probably seeing the inner workings of a shark that constantly breaks. It's difficult to see the final product from something that goes horribly wrong.
Yeah, especially when you're shooting probably out of sequence and all of this as well. But
I guess it's testament to Spielberg and probably Werner Fields as well.
Yeah, it's great editing.
Yeah, actually it won the Oscar for best editing, didn't it?
Yeah,
it did. Yeah. So it's just a testament to how good they are at their jobs.
Yeah.
That this turned out to be such a phenomenon.
Yeah, in a way it does prove that, like, from a directing point of view, if you know how to create suspense, it almost doesn't matter about the story elements. Mm-hmm. You're talking about, like, you're not having... In a way, the story can kind of be a bit fluid, as long as you know how to build suspense, keep people on the edge of the seat. They almost don't care too much about how you get there. Especially once you've built up a bit of empathy for the main character. Yeah. You hate to see them go through all this trouble and all this kind of stuff, and hope they succeed. You hope, as a paying audience, you hope it's not that easy because you want something for your money. But
did you have a favourite moment or scene? Because you must have seen this quite a bit.
I have seen it, so I'm probably going to pick moments which are not the most well-known bits. So, for example, I have seen it a lot, but I have never really noticed that drowning joke, which I think I've already mentioned. Yeah. The wife who says, "Oh, there's a clinical name for that condition, being afraid of the water." Yeah. Drowning. I thought that was great. I forgot quite how funny the Quint drinks from a can, and they were very heavy.
Oh, that's the
they were very
funniest moment. Yeah.
Cans were very heavy in the 70s, and he takes a big swig, doesn't he, and crushes it. Show how macho he is. Yeah. Dreyfus wasn't having none of it, so he downs his water and crushes the plastic cup. It's a brilliant character, isn't it? Like.
Yeah, their relationship, because that scene, I like this the scene where they're getting drunk together, and when that sort of Quint's moment is when he talks about him being on the USS Indianapolis.
Yeah. That adds to his whole I've been there and I've been through some awful stuff and I've seen it all, and yet when he's the one that dies, and so it's a bit spoiler alert.
We should really say that at the beginning, shouldn't we?
I think it should become our theme. Always say the spoilers at the end. Yeah. But it's like, if even the old timer can't defeat this thing.
Yeah, and also his relationship with Hooper, Dreyfus's character, because I think there was quite a lot of tension between them. From what you hear with interviews with Dreyfus, I think there was quite a lot of tension between them.
In real life?
Real life on set. Well, I think when a shoot goes on the water for up to 7 months or so, there's going to get tension.
I'm sure, just the working conditions, I'm sure, would make everyone really grouchy.
And apparently Robert Shaw, who played Quint, he says he was trying to rile Dreyfus up because that would suit their characters.
Right.
Which it probably did. But it came to a head where I think Dreyfuss said he threw away his whiskey once, Robert Shaw's whiskey, when he was at a sort of key moment. And apparently they just didn't speak for a while after that.
Oh my word. Yeah. Risky.
Yeah, very risky. No, whiskey. Any other? So the other favourite scene of mine is the shark cage scene. I think I wrote that down. I was like, this is when I'm the most tense.
Right.
I think that because you've been flashes. There are just flashes of tension, which are generally associated with the music, and then this is just sustained suspense, and then one thing happens another after another and after another.
Yeah.
And I think that was my favourite scene.
Yeah. I remember thinking you must be tense because I remember you saying this is such a bad idea as Dreyfuss gets in the cage and it gets locked. Idea. Yeah. Well, talking about the music, I mean, obviously, like, it is absolutely iconic and things, and obviously it's in place of the lack of visuals for the shark for the first half of the movie,
and it works.
Yeah. So you just see it from the shark's point of view.
Yeah.
And you just hear the dun 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 dun, and then. What really added to the next jump after we've had the head in the boat is when he's chucking the meat off the back.
Yeah. And
suddenly within the same frame, the shark just comes up without any music.
Yeah.
And his expression is so good, isn't it? Like, did I just see that?
Yeah.
And then of course he says the famous line.
Yeah.
That is the title of our podcast. So.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah, that's the one.
Is that the only time they have without the music then? Because I noticed throughout the time, every time that there was like a so when the kids
whenever there was a red herring.
Yeah, a red herring. That's perfect. Yeah. So whenever there is a red herring, like the kids in the water with the fin, there's no music at all.
Ah, right.
But whenever there is a shark, it's always preceded by the music.
Right.
So none of the red herrings have any music associated with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which is I quite liked.
Yeah.
I did notice that.
Well, it adds to that real time feeling because remember that's the bit we were just talking about where the chief is sat on the beach watching. Yeah. And you get that from the visuals, that so much so that you probably don't need the music to build the tension. Yeah. We were also talking about what certificate it was, wasn't it? So yes, this is amazing. We only sort of discovered this as the credits were rolling. So I didn't know. I thought this is a 15, because of the gore and the tension, surely. But apparently it was a PG up until 2012. Which is just remarkable. I would not show any kids that. I wouldn't show any kids under 12 that. No. It would give me nightmares. Yeah, it would put them off any trip to the beach. Yeah. Actually sounds quite good. Now, we found out that the BBFC upgraded it on the re-release to a 12A. But even in 12As these days, you can't show blood. Is that right? So you can have lots of death, but you can't really show much blood. I'm not sure. There are rules on this sort of thing, but there's certain numbers of times you can show it or whatever. But because you can have a 12A in which lots of people die, like henchmen die. Yeah. But as long as there's no blood, that's how studios keep it down to a 12A rather than being a 15. Oh right. In a way, suspense is almost more scary than out and out gore. True, because I think you can desensitize yourself to gore. But yeah, to some extent you can, because surely, even if you're quite young, if you've got an older brother or something, surely you've watched computer games and that kind of thing. But I don't think if a film's working, you shouldn't be desensitized to the tension. Yeah, I don't think so. So we're heading towards the end of this episode, and anything else you'd like to add, Luke? Actually, one thing I want to mention. So Spielberg was actually very, very clever that. One of the reasons why he didn't get replaced, or potentially one of the reasons why he didn't get replaced despite this going over budget, he had a lot of support from his producers, but his first casting was Brody's wife, Ellen, who is played by Lorraine Gary, who is wife of the president of Universal, Sid Sheinberg. Oh, really? So she was the first person he cast in the movie. Taking out maybe a little bit of an insurance policy to make sure he didn't get... Why is that? Yeah, very clever. Very shrewd, Spielberg. And do you know who was responsible for one of the reasons the shark broke? No, I can't say I do. George Lucas. Really? He came to visit set and then sat in the mouth of the shark and broke it. Brilliant. He got revenge because there's definitely... Spielberg got revenge because there's definitely a clip I've seen of one of the prequels where they're walking some kind of droid and one of those really skinny ones, and Spielberg accidentally breaks its head off.
Really?
Yeah. And they're sort of in what looks like a car park, being like, man, I can't believe you did this.
So knowing this, that's intentional then, surely.
Yeah, maybe.
And it got nominated for 4 Oscars. Did you see that video? Have you seen that video on YouTube? It's basically this massive hubris video of Steven Spielberg inviting a film crew to his house for the Oscar nominations.
No.
Expecting that Jaws is going to have a clean sweep across the board, and then his shot of his face as he hasn't got nominated for Best Director. Watch it. It's on YouTube.
Okay, I'll try and find that. I didn't know that existed.
Because normally Spielberg comes across as a very, very humble guy.
Yeah. We were all young once.
But we were all young once. And it was just a massive shot of humble pie to Spielberg. It's really quite funny. It was the biggest summer movie of 1975. I think it made about 450 million over the course of 3 months.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable for 1975.
It is.
And apparently, so people would queue up and they wanted to show it in less cinemas. So although instead of expanding it, they kept it quite select with few cinemas,
right,
in order to keep demand up and keep queues, people having to queue for seats.
And then I guess you can keep the film running for much longer.
Yeah.
Which I think about, this generation who go to cinema now think of movies as coming out for a week, 2 weeks or something. Absolutely. And then you wait another 2 or 3 weeks and you get the DVD, or it goes on Netflix or some other streaming service. But if a film was doing really well, some films were in the theatres for 6 months.
Yeah.
It's unthinkable now.
Yeah, crazy.
And you could go
unless you're the Greatest Showman.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention briefly was with Jaws. You feel, when I was watching it, it does feel like you've seen a lot of this stuff before and these tropes. But I think it's simply because this is the first movie like that.
Yeah.
And how much that's influenced in all the movies since then. So I think it's spawned a whole lot of monster movies since then.
Oh, definitely.
And that was the first one. I mean, things like just the modern stuff, like all the shark movies we have. These are Deep Blue Sea and
even Piranha Double D or whatever, 3 Double D or whatever it's called.
A classic. There was a movie I was looking up, seeing its influences, and I found this movie called Blood Beach. Have you seen it?
No, I never even heard of it.
It was a movie, I think it's from the early 80s, and it uses Jaws' tagline directly. Its premise is that these things, there are creatures that don't live under the water, they live under the beach, and then grab up what people on the beach.
Oh, right. It's a bit like Jaws meets Tremors, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the tagline was, just when you thought it was safe to get back into the water, you have to cross the goddamn beach.
That's really good. Right, so this concludes our episode on Jaws, our first major
I hope you enjoyed it.
Spielberg thing. Hope you enjoyed it, Luke. It was your first time watching it.
And yeah, I know it was. I did like it. It was very good.
Highly recommend it, obviously, if you haven't seen it.
Well, make sure you are, if you're listening to this podcast, so you can watch Jaws on Netflix. Make sure you're watching along with the podcast. I think that's probably how you're going to get the most out of it.
And let us know your thoughts.
Follow us on Twitter at Big Boat Podcast.
Yes, Twitter wouldn't let me have The Bigger Boat Podcast. It's too many letters. So that is why it is at Big Boat Podcast.
And you can also email us on, Joey?
thebiggerboatpodcast@gmail.com.
So please get in touch. We are very happy to read your emails. And if you have any specific questions that you want to ask or anything, bring up anything that we've mentioned on the show, just let us know.
Our next episode is, of course... Dun, dun, dun. Do you want to reveal, Luke?
Yes, it's Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Ooh.
Which I'm quite excited about. So it's first foray into sci-fi.
So have you seen...
No.
Oh, Luke.
Look, the first movie I get to that I've actually seen is Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So...
Okay, it's not too far off, actually.
No, it's not too far. But no, I've not seen Close Encounters either. And I promise I like films. I really do. I promise.
I promise I have heard of Steven Spielberg.
So join us for that episode, and we will see you next week on the next episode of The Bigger Boat.
See you then.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.